McCall.
Okay. All right, we're live. It's funny. I'm glad I remembered to pick us live because we were having some animated conversation.
Yeah.
That I totally would have forgotten. And we would have talked for like 30 minutes and totally missed the live window.
It was
So I am glad you're here. Tyler McCall, editor-in-chief of Fashionista.com. Welcome to 20 Minutes in Lockdown.
Thank you for having me.
I am so glad. I discovered you. I don't know who retweeted you. Someone retweeted you, and I discovered you on Twitter. How did we meet?
I bet it was Aliza.
It had to be Aliza. Yeah, Aliza. If you look at everything, Aliza really is the fulcrum of the universe. It's very strange. Her and like Randy Zuckerberg, between the two of them, you could do like the Hands Across America thing without any other help. But yeah, so it must have been Aliza. But yeah, Aliza's the bomb. I love her to death. But yeah, so I've been following you on Twitter, and you are very, very funny and very, very talented and smart. And you are in Brooklyn surviving this horrendous dystopian nightmare bullshit that we're all going through. And what is the state of fashion today in the middle of a pandemic?
Bad. It's bad.
Jane Morehouse just said you have fabulous. Well, she said fabulous hair color. Until I'm told otherwise, I'm going to assume she's talking about me. But it could very well. I'm assuming more than likely you. Yeah, it's funny. I got light going on, so I got the whole Pauly Walnuts thing here. But that's not. I'm gray on both sides. You just can't see it based on where the wing light is. But okay. So what's the state of fashion today in this world?
Yeah, it's bad. Everything had to shut down, and fashion was one of the harder hit industries, as best I understand. I don't work in every industry, but especially because you have the brick and mortar shut down, so everyone had to shop online. But then you have these smaller independent designers who have been so reliant on retail for so long, and I'm sure that's in kind of anyway. So it's bad, but I think that things are starting to turn around. I hope that things are starting to turn around. Fashion Month is around the corner, whatever that's going to look like. We're still trying to figure that out, I think.
Fashion Month and Fashion Week are really the only industry. It's the only industry where I believe actually should get a week and a month, right? Social media does not need a fucking week, right? Social media does not need a social media week. They need a swift kick in the ass, not a week. Yeah. Fashion Week, Fashion Month, I'm totally all for that.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to figure out what that looks like. Europe certainly seems to be doing okay, and they're pretty reopened, but they're not allowing Americans. So I don't know how many Americans will be traveling for Fashion Month.
Our passports are the most useless pieces of paper they've ever been. I'm looking at dual citizenship. I found that there are some small little tiny countries where you can spend money and buy property, and you can get dual citizenship.
Oh, really?
I'm seriously considering it. All of a sudden, I'd be from a country that no one's ever heard of, near like Fiji or some shit, but it works.
Yeah.
I guarantee you people are going back looking through ancestral. Well, I have a cousin from Poland, somewhere like 4 generations removed. And yeah, it's insanity. So are they doing virtual shows? Are they doing virtual runways? I mean, how is that working? I don't see fashion over Zoom. Isaac Mizrahi must be eating his heart out. I don't see fashion working over Zoom.
It's harder. I mean, it's such a visual medium, and you have to touch things and see things up close that I think it's harder. Certainly during couture, and people were starting to do cruise shows over the summer. You saw some people doing virtual. I know like Dior experimented with putting on a completely live runway show, but live streaming it.
Yeah.
Which was nice. I mean, you still get the big effect, and certainly I think Dior has the budget for that. But it's a little different. I feel like you're missing some of the magic that you would be when you're there in person and seeing things on the runway and seeing things unfold.
I feel like fashion's one of those things that's an experience, right? Yeah. It's not just, you don't just report on it, you report on the entire experience.
Yeah.
I mean, totally now. I mean, with multimedia and everything like that, I imagine it's difficult to get. I suppose the best designers can get their message across regardless of what they have to work with, but it definitely makes it easier for like new up and coming designers, whatever, if they have a theme and if they have that must be difficult.
The really smart designers, I think what they've done is they've pivoted to use social media to connect with their customer in a more kind of personal basis. Because if you're not putting out the clothes as much, it's good to figure out like what your brand is and what you represent and who you're representing. Like I think specifically Brandon Maxwell has been doing a great job of that on his Instagram. When I think about that, Rachel Antonoff on a different designer, also doing a really great job making her Instagram feel personal and connecting when you're like, you can't really do anything else, right?
Well, that brings up a really interesting point, because you have designers who are not only working and doing sort of brand new things, but are also saying, okay, here's a chance to break all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not that fashion really had any rules per se, but They had some. And now everything's out the window, right?
You would think so. I think some people are still trying to, some of the bigger, more established fashion brands certainly are still trying to play by those rules because the rules work for them, right? If you're a Chanel or a Dior or one of the, like a Prada, those rules still work for you, versus if you're a smaller designer and you're having more chance to experiment, kind of play around with things.
It's interesting. I think that one of the things about a pandemic, because I've been through so many of them, and I know this, one of the things about a pandemic is that you get to, it's just like, I remember when I was running my PR firm back in the middle of the .com boom, right? Like 2099, 98, 99, 2000. I was able to start a PR firm at like age 25 because everyone else was doing weird shit, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, you want to start a brand? Here's $20 million, launch your .com. We don't care if it ever makes money. And so you piggyback on the concept of no rules. And when you're looking at the premise of sort of the no rules factor today, what do you think is going to come out of this? What do you think in the fashion world we're going to see in 10 years, 5 years, from this, where we're looking at, that was born, that's demic fashion, whatever the fuck they're going to call it, whatever horrible term they're going to come up with and just destroy. But, what are we going to see from that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that sticking with that really strict fashion calendar of you show spring in September, you show fall in February. It works for some people. I think a lot of that is chained to a system of retail that doesn't really work for people anymore. I mean, if you look at all the retailers who are going out of business or going through bankruptcy, I mean, Barney's RIP, right? You're going to see designers kind of trying to figure out, again, I think that's where that personal connection comes in, and connecting with your customer on a personal level is relying less on that model of I show on a runway, I get an exclusive rack in like a Barney's or a Saks Fifth Avenue or whatever, and people discover me that way, versus how can I find my customer and people who will connect with me. I think it's interesting. It reminds me of like the trunk show model. A lot of designers are returning to that as well. They were when people were doing stuff. Right. But it's a great way to connect personally with your customer and to know what they're looking for, and you get that real on the ground feedback versus it being filtered through an entire sales team at a retailer who is looking out for their bottom line and not necessarily yours. So I'm hoping that's all going to change.
It's funny you talk about connecting with the customer, because I'll bring up the if the F word used to be the word that you weren't allowed to say 20 years ago, now it's the I word of influencers. Oh yeah. Right. And look, I'm one, right? Companies. Yeah. I have a weird audience, and I love my audience, and I get a bicycle because I do triathlons, and normal people look and say, well, that fat ass Shankman can do a triathlon, maybe I should too, and I'll get the same bike he has, right? So but I'm not against the concept of influencing, but I think that it has just gone so over the I want to puke line over the past several years. Yeah. That, anyone who has an Instagram, what's the great quote I heard? This is probably like 10 years ago now, 5 years ago now. Oh, you're a model. Who's your agency? Instagram? And it's sort of that it's taken on that negative connotation, much like social media week, right? So, but there's still value in it, and there's still connecting with your audience and connecting with your brand if done right. Yeah. There's a lot of value in that. Talk about that.
I think that if you're an influencer now, I mean, you're a great example of this. Sure, are you selling bikes? Great. But you also have something to talk about, and you have a point of view, and you have something that you represent, right? I think if you're looking at the fashion space now, especially with everything that's been going on over the last 6 months, if you're an influencer that for the last 6 months, all you've been doing is posting free clothes, then you're kind of out of it, right? Like, what are you even doing? We have all these things like the pandemic and the social justice movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. If you don't have a stance and a point of view and a fearlessness and having that kind of viewpoint, then you're nothing. Like,
but then and I think the downside there is that you also have people who I think that, but they think it in the wrong way. Yeah. I.e., the 2 or 3 Instagrammers who were filmed at BLM protests, literally showing up, getting a photo of them holding a shovel to help clean up, and then being filmed doing that. Yeah. One of them was a reporter somewhere, I think. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's got to be authentic, of course.
And why is it so hard, Tyler? Why is it so hard why do so many people want to hurt the world by even though they know there has to be authenticity, they just don't do it. Why?
I think it's just safer to not do that, right? It's safer to just be somebody who gets flown to fashion shows and puts on clothes and doesn't have an opinion on anything. It's sort of, I think about what people used to accuse Taylor Swift of doing, right? Is that you're at risk of alienating anybody who might be a customer, or I guess if you're an influencer, a follower, then you just do nothing. And I think that we're in a world where even Taylor Swift is speaking up about politics. If you're an influencer, you can speak up about the stuff that matters to you. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of the reason I do that, it comes from me is the concept that I have ADHD, as everyone knows. And I have massive ADHD, and part of my career is being upfront about that and talking about that, because I think a lot of my successes come from that. To get to that point, I've had to stop. I've had to literally clean out my field of fucks. I have not one fucketh left. My field is barren. And because I don't care, right? Because I no longer care what people think in the comments, and because I know, I'm not going to listen to haters, things like that, I'm as honest as I can be.
Yeah.
And I'm as true to myself as I can be. And if you don't like it, well, fuck, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm really kind of busy enjoying my life, so I'm going to be doing that for the rest of the day. And I think that if more influencers adopted that strategy, they'd be much more successful.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up following me on Twitter and thinking that I'm funny on Twitter, which is very kind of you, by the way. But I joke that I've made myself like virtually unhireable because I just constantly tweet my opinion, like my real opinion in the industry. And sometimes I think maybe no one's calling me for a job because I've thought about how stupid I think that they're being.
I would argue that you have made yourself unhireable to brands that you probably wouldn't want to work with anyway.
Right. That's probably
right. I mean, I've always thought about that. Like if someone's not going to give me a speaking gig because they're offended by what I said online, or because they think it's too out there, I probably don't want to speak for their company anyway.
Yeah.
So, and then again, I see there are people out there who I look at their feed and I look at how many of their followers are bots, and I look at that they're always very vanilla and they say exactly the right thing, and I know they're making money, and I feel like that's blood money. I couldn't take that. Yeah. Great episode, by the way, in The Sopranos. By the way, guys, Tyler has not watched The Sopranos yet. She's never seen The Sopranos, right? So I've added her. So you gotta make that a thing this year.
It's on my list.
But there's this great episode where one of the people there, I won't tell you which one, goes to see a shrink, not the shrink, but another shrink, and he's like, I won't take your money because it's blood money.
Yeah.
Right? It's sort of that same premise. Like if you're making all this money because you're just plain vanilla and you're not taking the opinion of anything, talk less, smile more type thing, right?
Yeah.
What are you standing for? And how long can that really last?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Are you doing this for the quick buck, or are you doing this for long term?
Yeah.
And I got a 7-year-old who's going to be in college like by tomorrow, so I'm long terming on this bitch.
Exactly.
So how are you? Moving. How are you getting? Sue Procco just shouted out Tyler. Do we know Sue Procco? She just shouted out Tyler as if she loves you or is good friends with you. So whatever. Oh no, she's angry that you didn't watch Sopranos. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Tyler and Becky Melvin said, "Oh my God, just watch the Sopranos already." Okay.
I'm saving it for a special. I'm saving it. Okay, I said this to you, but I'm saving it because I know that I'm only going to be able to watch it for the first time once. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I need to save it for a time that I'll be able to fully enjoy that moment.
When do you get to that point in your life where you embrace the Sopranos?
Exactly. I feel like I need to earn it.
So you're in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
How's Brooklyn holding up? Manhattan just fucked beyond belief. How's Brooklyn holding up?
Right? I haven't been to Manhattan. No, that's not true. I went to the dentist in June. That's the last time I think I went through Manhattan.
When was the last time you went to Subway?
Brooklyn's nice. No, you know what? I cheated. My cousin has a car. And
so do my parents. Yeah.
The dentist, and so she texted asking for a dentist recommendation. So I recommended mine and made an appointment at the same time. So I was like, okay, well, I need to go.
Brooklyn's holding up. From what I hear, Brooklyn's been better than the city.
It's been quiet. Yeah, it never felt changed in the same way that I've heard Manhattan felt changed. Except we live on a pretty busy thoroughfare that runs straight to the hospital. So I will say that was a bit eerie because like everywhere else, it was just sirens all the time. And we have a great view of the city, which is nice. But also when the Empire State Building was lit up like a beating heart, that was a little eerie. I didn't like this much. I was like, can we do something a little cheerier? Like, I understand the point, but.
I had 2 questions. What have you learned about yourself over the past 5 months?
Oh, I wish I had learned something about myself. Right? What else have I been doing? I don't know. Yeah, I've learned that honestly, I feel like I'm more uptight than I thought I was, and I'm trying to loosen up on that a little bit. If that makes sense. I learned that I certainly thought I had more time. I'm known as a flake, unfortunately, because I'm in this job, you have so much going on all the time. I always have dinners or events after work or drinks or whatever.
I remember those.
So on the week, I remember seeing people. So on the weekend, I'd be like, oh, I'll hang out with my friend. I'll get brunch with them next weekend or whatever. And then it shut down and there is no next weekend to get brunch. So now I'm like, okay, well, when this is over, I'm never canceling on plans again. But
you totally know
they're going to hold me to that, by the way.
So totally know that's not true.
Yeah, I have to be careful.
I mean, my new favorite shirt is a picture of a cat, and it's looking around a corner, and it's wearing a mask. It's going, ew, people. Yeah. And it's for the introverted extrovert that I am, right? It's spectacular because when I'm on stage, I'm awesome. When I'm on a Zoom call, I'm awesome. But I don't want to sit down and have dinner with 7 people because people suck. And it's that premise of I'd rather be in the back room, like playing with the dog or something. But I find that the interesting side of that is that while I don't necessarily miss people, I miss knowing that I could be going out to do something, right? Mm-hmm. Not that I actually would, but I miss the fact that I could be.
You miss the potential for it. Exactly. That's how I feel.
Well, I've heard a couple more thoughts from the industry. I've heard that there are, and of course, I have a 7-year-old kid, so I haven't gone to a party in about 7 years. But I remember I've been hearing more and more that there are these underground sort of industry elite parties and all this.
TikTok kids or something?
Huh?
Like the TikTok kids or something?
No, like they're actual parties. Like they're in Manhattan. Like they're busting like they used to bust GBH parties in the early 2000s. They're busting like 200 kids at a fucking rave in somewhere in the East Village now.
I'll be candid. I was not cool enough to get invited to those, so I have no idea if those are happening. I believe that they are happening, but I wouldn't know about them.
Well, have you used yet? And you can be honest here because we've all done it. Have you used COVID as an excuse where you easily could have gone and socially distanced and hung out with someone, but you used COVID as an excuse not to?
Do you know I haven't?
Really?
Yeah, I haven't.
You're lying or you're a better person than all of us.
You could say, I guess you could make the argument. I haven't been home. I need to go home and visit family in Florida. And I was going to try this summer, but then their COVID rates started exploding. And I'm not.
That's actually perfectly justifiable. Not going to Florida.
That's not an excuse. That was just real. I was like, God, I love you all and I miss you, but I'm not doing that.
It's amazing what I've seen in terms of, it's sort of like the new, well, I'd love to, but I'm washing my mask that night. It's just, we just, And the funny thing is that I don't feel lonely. Yeah. There's a big difference between being alone and feeling lonely. I'm on the 56th floor. I'm looking out over the city. It's quiet, right? It's not the 9th Avenue that I'm used to seeing, as of 5 months ago, but I have people. I text, I talk, I can do all this stuff with people. So it's changed the fact that we don't need all the time to have that, okay, let's go out and have a drink mentality.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Last question. What's the first thing you're going to do when restrictions are lifted? Because I just heard we're able to go back to the gym in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, I've been cheating on that because the gym in my apartment building has been open this whole time.
Oh, you suck.
I know.
I hate you.
I didn't even think about it until I posted on Instagram once. And someone was like, your gym is open? And I was like,
oh my God.
But I only go down there because there's no one ever down there. It's just me. And you can I wipe down the machines. It's like a whole procedure. Yeah, I was just talking about this with my my boyfriend last night. It was like, what is the first thing we're going to do? I almost feel overwhelmed. I mean, the realistic answer is that I'm going to sit and be like, I don't know. Are we supposed to go out? Can I? Is this safe? I had this whole plan of we're going to go to drinks and we're going to go to dinner and we're going to go to the movies. Cause I miss going to the movies.
Or you go to the liquor store, get a bottle of tequila, go home and watch Netflix. That's what we're going to do.
Realistically, I'm going to go out, have one drink, be freaked and head back with my cat on the couch. Cause I've gotten very spoiled at being able to just drink at home on the couch. That's the real answer, right?
It's funny. I rarely drink anymore. I quit for a while. Now every once in a very long while I have a drink, but I couldn't imagine if I was still drinking at the level that I was 5 years ago. It would be because it's not, for me, it was never that I'd get drunk and do stupid shit. It was that the next morning I just wouldn't wake up early and go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I just imagine myself on my couch as Homer in the episode where he works from home and he's in the moo-moo. I mean, that would have been me by now.
Pretty early on, I figured out that I needed to establish a no drinking on weeknights rule.
Yeah.
Because it was that.
Have you stuck to it?
Until very recently.
I had the rule. The rule was there. I established it.
I had the rule. I was doing it for a long time, and then it got to be summer, and it was like,
but again, I think it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. The rules have just gone out the window. They really, really have. We're at the point now where it is just, when no one ever prepared. There were no rules to prepare us for living in a world where the outside air could kill you. Right. And so we pretty much just figured out that whatever happens, I guess. And you live with your boyfriend?
Yes.
How's that going? Are you both like home all the time now?
Yes.
And that's going well?
Constantly. We are very grateful. We moved apartments last summer. I think if we had been in our old apartment, it would have been a crime scene by now. But thankfully, we have enough space here that we can kind of figure it out. So that's nice.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, that's the one thing. It's what we joke about in New York City. You pay for what's outside your apartment, and when you're forced to stay in it, you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Not leaving though. We're not going anywhere.
When we moved, we found this apartment and it has a patio. And I was like, I don't care about that. Like, I did not care about that because I was like, we live in New York. If I want to go outside, there's 5 million places I can be outside. And now I'm like, thank God.
How awesome is your world outside now? Yeah.
To have that. You're not going
I went up to the Hamptons last week, and I was able to barbecue, and I'm like, this is amazing. I'm making burgers. I'm like, who the fuck am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. Yeah. But anyway, Tyler, this is awesome. How can people find you?
I'm at Eiffel Tyler, pretty much everywhere you want to be. In some places you don't.
Tyler, we're having you back sometime soon. You were awesome. I love you. You're amazing. Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching. Tyler, thank you for being there. We will do this again. And guys, stay safe, stay healthy. Wear a mask. Talk to you later. Bye, everyone.